Welcome to another episode of Advancing with Amy, Mental Health Warrior and Neurospicy Mama. In today's episode, we're joined by the inspiring Ellen Busch, an author whose work spans the genre of memoir and manifesto. Ellen shares her remarkable journey of overcoming trauma and learning to thrive despite the challenges of growing up with dyslexia. Diagnosed at a young age and initially written off by educators, Ellen defied the odds with the incredible support of her parents and her own indomitable spirit. From navigating the academic and social hurdles of her school years to earning a master's degree against all expectations, Ellen's story is a testament to resilience and determination. We'll dive deep into her personal experiences, explore her understanding of dyslexia as a processing difference, and learn how certain organizations are beginning to recognize and value the unique strengths of dyslexic individuals. Ellen also opens up about her escape from an abusive relationship with a narcissist, her journey toward healing and thriving, and her ongoing commitment to helping others as a certified life coach. Tune in for an episode filled with insights, hope, and the powerful story of a true mental health warrior. All right, we're here with Ellen Busch today, and she is an author, and actually she wrote a memoir, so I guess you're called a memoirist. Is that what it's called?
Well, part memoir, part manifesto. I'll take any of those labels.
I love it. Manifesto, that has power. All
Yeah.
right. So I would love for you to share your story. I know you've got an incredible story about overcoming trauma and learning to heal and thrive. Could you kind of start at the beginning of that with us?
Sure. So when I was 6 or 7 years old, I was diagnosed as dyslexic. And I lived in a New York City suburb, Croton-on-Hudson, and which is a affluent community. It's the type of community that people move to for the schools. And unfortunately, the attitudes at that time, this was in the mid-70s, was that it was an intellectual disability. And I was written off. And in a parent-teacher conference around that time, when my parents were notified, the administrator sat my parents down and said, "You know what? She's not going to go to college. She might finish high school. She's not going to be contributing to society other than as a wife and a mother. So you should really focus on finding a husband who will take care of her."
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how my academic journey began, which is pretty awful. Now, fortunately for me, my parents did not accept that.
Good.
And that parent-teacher conference ended with my mother pounding her fist on a desk saying, "I refuse to allow you to condemn my daughter."
Oh, I got chills.
Yeah. So, and they just, they got involved. They just didn't accept this. And, they knew I was emotionally healthy, intelligent child. I was their child. I was 6. If there was something really wrong, it would have been apparent a lot earlier. So they went to work. They supported me in every way. My mom became very involved in the school system. She became a class mom. She was on field trips. She helped me with my homework every day. And a lot of days that homework ended with me in tears out of just
Mm.
pure frustration. My dad was in the background cheering me on, saying, "You can do it, Ellen. You can do it. I believe in you." And just one question at a time, one question at a time. And he was teaching me about micro goals, about how to work through things step by step. My dad was a military veteran. He really understood the real important learning happens outside the classroom. And he set out to teach me everything he knew, including navigating his boat, reading nautical charts, reading the ocean, reading the water. We had a summer home on Fire Island, so he was an avid sports fisherman. So we were always on the ocean. And set me on outward bound at age 15. Sent me to go learn to get certified to scuba dive when I was 17. Just always doing adventurous things. And I loved doing these things. I never felt pushed into them. I was excited to do them. And he knew that that's where I was going to learn to persevere. And despite all of this support, I still had my self-esteem and self-worth destroyed. But they gave me the tools to keep going.
Were you still hearing at school negative things?
Oh, it was all the way through school system. And it was actually after I graduated from college And I've also gone on to earn a master's degree. So they got that wrong. So the attitudes were terrible. And it was always a second class citizen. And I was bullied. And I was bullied by teachers as well as by other students. I went back after finishing college to get my high school transcript. I wanted to copy because I was trying to figure out my next step. And I ran into my guidance counselor. And he said, oh, I just moved back into town. I graduated college. And he looked at me and went, really? You graduated from college?
Wow.
Yeah. And I was a guidance counselor.
That's just disgusting.
Yeah, there's a lot of unprofessional behavior there. So, I had all these skills, but I didn't believe in myself. I didn't have self-worth. I didn't have self-confidence. I had very low self-esteem. I used to joke and say I didn't have low self-esteem. I had no self-esteem. It wasn't allowed. When you're a dyslexic student, you are condemned and you are not allowed to be successful because they've already decided that you won't be.
Now, everybody has the general concept of what dyslexia is, but I know you've got a broader understanding. Would you give us a little bit of background on dyslexia?
Sure. So really what it is, it's a processing difference. And if any listeners or watchers out there are interested, there's an amazing book out there called The Dyslexic Advantage. And it's written by two MDs. And it goes through what some of the deficits are, but also what some of the advantages are. So many people would say it is a processing issue, but I believe that we are such strong visual thinkers that we don't think in language, and we have to take a little bit more time to learn language. I like to say language is not our first language. Our first language is visualization. We think in pictures, which is an incredible skill as an adult. But when you're learning to read, it's a problem.
Yeah.
So we just process things differently, and we don't fit into that narrow box that the education system wants us to be in. And my mom used to say it all the time. She said, it's so obvious that you're intelligent and capable. It's like they just don't know how to teach it.
Right.
And I think she was right.
When do you think things started to change in that area?
I think it's starting to change now. It's interesting. The research that I've done is most of the research is being done in the UK. They seem to be the most advanced in having an understanding of what it really means to be dyslexic. I think it's very, very slowly changing. I think with each new study, with each new generation, what's interesting is that some companies and government agencies are starting to recruit people who are dyslexic for a very specific skill set. In particular, the British intelligence services is actively recruiting people who are dyslexic.
That's great. What skill are they looking for? The visualization or?
It's the ability to see connections, gists, or inferences and patterns that most people miss. To us, they're glaringly obvious. And if you're an analyst and you're in the intelligence services, you're going to see things that other people aren't going to see.
Okay.
So it's very interesting. NASA also is actively recruiting. I know. NASA. Really?
That's awesome.
And that is because they're recruiting for the visualization skills.
Right.
Our skills are so strong. It's like, I like to say, it's like we're born with CAD software. So if you're a rocket scientist and you want to rebuild and redesign a rocket, we do that in our head.
Wow. So that is so cool. So what led the teachers when you were young, when you were 6, to decide that you had dyslexia?
I was actually tested. There's a test out there called the WIS test or the WACE test. And one is for children and one is for adults. And it tests several different areas. It starts with a basic IQ test. There's a psychological exam. There's math skills, reading skills. It has changed over time because the test is constantly improved and kept modern. But other areas that I was tested in were abstract reasoning, logic, reading, math skills. There's a whole list of different areas. But what was interesting was I did really, really well in logic and abstract reasoning. Abstract reasoning, I scored in the 99th percentile. In logic, I scored in the 98th percentile.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty impressive. But they
Yeah.
still wrote me off. So the other thing here, I'm going to back up just a little bit. The other really interesting point, and I do write about this, is I was originally diagnosed as ambidextrous. And when you're ambidextrous, you don't necessarily have a dominant eye. And the thought process was then that if you don't have a dominant eye, you can't learn to read because you can't track across the page. That was the
Right.
belief. I do not think that that is the belief system currently, but it was when I went through the education system.
Well, it was when my daughter went through. She's 13 now, and when she was
Okay.
younger, they actually made her pick a hand so that she could learn to cross that borderline.
Wow.
And yeah, she still is ambidextrous, but she leans toward her left hand now because that's what they chose. Because they said she
Interesting.
was a little stronger in that.
And that's kind of what happened to me too. They used to do this test with me where they would bounce a ball on the tennis ball and they would bounce it to my midline and they wanted to see which hand that I grabbed the ball with. And I grabbed it with both hands. Well, if you send it right to my midline, that's the logical thing to do. But because I didn't have this dominant eye, they actually didn't allow me to begin to learn to read until the end of second grade.
Oh, so they put you behind.
So they put me behind 2 years, my peers. Yeah.
Wow, that's not good.
Yeah. So I had that. I was up against that as well. And then when they gave me the West test, they said, well, she doesn't have reading skills. Well, I have reading skills because you wouldn't let me learn to read.
Right.
Just this really messed up dynamic that I got caught in. And you know what? And I had to figure out how to function in the classroom that wasn't designed for me.
Right.
And
And
that's
now they would say you're neurodiverse,
exactly.
and they would, I would think, work with you with accommodations for those kind of things.
Well, I did fall under the accommodations protection because the ADA, dyslexia is considered a legitimate or a real handicap. So they are obligated by law to provide those accommodations. Now, my parents did additional things. I had a tutor outside of school, but that was, my parents had the resources for that. Not everybody does.
Right. And your
So,
parents were so supportive.
yeah, they were.
That's amazing. I think that gave you a strong base
Yes.
from.
Mhm.
What else did you pull from that really got you to graduate, get your MBA, all of that?
I was determined and I wasn't going to quit because that was one thing they couldn't take away from me was my willingness to outwork everybody.
Good for
And
you.
I went and got my master's degree for one reason, just to prove that I could.
Yeah.
I was just determined. I said, I'm going to go do this. And
Well,
I'm
good.
going to do this because you said I couldn't do it. So there's a little bit of a defiant streak with me too.
Right. But you've
Yeah.
definitely got confidence now. It shows when you're speaking. So where do you think that came from? Just your parents or just from that inner fight in you or?
Yeah. Well, it came from a couple places. So, being low self-esteem and low self-worth person makes you a target of bullies and predators. And unfortunately, I got married to a narcissist. I got duped. And yes, I'm saying that publicly and I'm saying it out loud because it happens every day. And it doesn't just happen to women, it happens to men as well. And I got duped and I was psychologically abused for 6 years. And we had an incident of violence when I called him on his BS. And then he called the police and tried to blame it on me. Just unbelievable behavior. So I had to plan and execute an escape. And I got out safely, which doesn't always happen.
Right.
So I consider myself very lucky. And I was completely traumatized. I was so traumatized, I was driving through stop signs and red lights. I could barely function.
Oh,
I reached my surrender point.
yeah.
Yep. And I will answer your question. I'm just kind of getting to it.
Yeah.
I reached my surrender point and I just turned myself over to a higher power. I mean, I literally looked up at the sky and said, I'm all yours. I don't know what else to do. And then I got to work. I got to work with coaches and therapists, and I had done years of trauma work, specifically EMDR, which is incredibly powerful for trauma. And I knew that if I didn't take a long, hard look at myself, I was going to be stuck in this pattern. And I needed to break the pattern. It's that dyslexia ability to see the patterns. And I was not willing to live that way anymore. And I was willing to do whatever it took. So I went to work and I sought out experts and therapists and coaches and started to do what I love to do. Is I went back to the adventure side of things in addition to doing all this work. So I learned to heal, but I also learned to thrive. And I learned to thrive by working with the life coaches. I've worked with 2 now, and I'm actually just completing my coaching course. So I'm coaching people as well.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Well, this is my way of, helping people.
Right.
So I have done training with a recently retired supervisory FBI agent. I've done self-defense training with him because I wanted to be prepared. I promised myself I wasn't going to be a victim.
Good.
So, and this gentleman is also an expert in Krav Maga. And then I've been training with Mark Devine's program, and he's a retired Navy SEAL. And he has a program for civilians. And it's a lot around breath work, yoga, physical fitness, and stamina and strength, of course. But it's a combination of military Navy SEAL training and some Eastern philosophies. So a lot of meditation time, a lot of time in sacred silence, a lot of breath work, daily breath work. And combining all of those, they all support each other. And that's how I moved from survivor who was traumatized into healing and then into thriving.
Wow. What an amazing journey. So, what kind of coaching are you going to be doing?
I will be an unbeatable mind coach, which is Mark's program. It's a certification through the Unbeatable Mind program. So
Okay.
I'm my coach, and it has a very specific philosophy, and it's called the 5 Mountain Training. And it's this idea that I've alluded to, that you're always working with different parts of yourself at the same time. You're always working on the physical part. We all need to be fit. We need a healthy body to carry around our brain and our heart, right?
Right.
And then there's the mental side. We always want to be learning and growing and, new things that keep our brain stimulated. The emotional side, dealing with these past traumas, dealing with issues like this. And then the intuitional side, learning to listen to your gut, to not get into those situations again.
Yeah.
And
That's important.
it's very important in preventing it. And then Mark uses the term kokoro. And kokoro is the merging of the heart and the mind.
Well, I like that.
And it's living a life of service and through self-mastery. Somebody who we could say lives in or lived in the kokoro heart would be, Bishop
Mother
Tutu.
Teresa or,
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
Yes, very world-centric service thought and living from the heart. So
That's great. When do your doors open or have they already?
I will be completing the process, I believe, in the middle of May. So very, very soon, and I'll update my website at the appropriate time. But yes, I have clients right now, but they're unpaid clients, or because it is considered ethical to charge if you're not certified.
Right. So, where can people find you? Where is your website?
Sure. Easy to find, ellenbusch.com. And don't forget the C. This is my family joke. So it's Bush like the beer, not like the president. And most people get that. Thank Anheuser-Busch for their millions of dollars in marketing that they spend, because it helps people to get my name.
That's great.
So, and then of course I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, eBush 1500. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Okay, great. Well, so if somebody was going through what you went through as a child, what would you recommend to them?
If you mean if it's a parent,
Both. I mean, even if they were in your shoes, how
right.
do they get the help that they need?
Well, the first thing I would say is you're not broken. You are not broken, no matter what anybody has told you or what you have struggled with. And seek out professional trauma help because you've probably been traumatized by the system. Stay in the mainstream. Please only work with credentialed, licensed mental health, workers or
Mhm.
therapists. And the reason I say that is there are a lot of charlatans out there.
Well, yeah.
And if you have low self esteem and low self worth, they are looking for you.
Yeah, that's sad but true.
And that's something I had to learn. I learned that the hard way. My ex-husband was looking for me. I was prey.
Wow, that's scary.
It is very scary. And that's why I've done the self-defense training, because I wanted to know that I could physically handle a situation if it became violent. And it's a training that I continue.
Have you noticed a difference in your relationship since then?
Absolutely. I had a really interesting incident. I was with a friend of mine. We get together all the time for coffee in Arvada, Colorado, which is right down, like 5 miles from me. And they have a wonderful little pedestrian community with shops and restaurants. And we get together and we're walking through the street, and it's generally, it's a totally safe community. But Colorado has a very large homeless population. And there was a guy who was walking towards us, and he was sizing me up. I could feel it. And he looked at me. He was about 6'1", and he's coming towards me. So we're going to pass each other on the street. And my friend is a marathon runner, so she's a pretty tough lady also. And what was different was than what I would have done in the past was that as this man approached me, I looked him straight in the eye, and I just started saying in my head, "Don't. Just don't.
Right.
Because I can take you down. I'm trained to take you down." And he kept walking.
Yay.
He kept walking. And I talked with my coach, the FBI agent, about this. And he said, really, there's no way of knowing 100%. But he said, the likelihood is that you prevented being attacked just by
Right.
your being and how you carry yourself. So, yes, I carry myself differently. My confidence is there. I know that I'm capable. I can handle a situation like that. I know.
That's great.
So,
Okay. So, what would you recommend then to a parent with a child going through that?
you know,
The same thing?
yeah. Well, also understand the level of frustration that your child is dealing with is not fair. And you may see behavioral issues, but the behavioral issues are not about the behavior. It's about either trauma that's occurring or just their sheer frustration that they're trying to cope with. They need your support. They need your absolute support and absolute unconditional love. That will make all the difference. And send them on outward bound.
Yeah, that sounds great. That's an incredible piece of advice there. I agree with you. You've got to be there and be supportive.
You've
You
got
know?
to be. It's not their fault. And it's not about working hard. They're not lazy. They are amazing. They have incredible, amazing brains. They just don't fit into the system. And do the research. Did you know that Albert Einstein was dyslexic?
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yes. So there's a lot of very famous, successful people like him. And I don't think anybody who understands who Albert Einstein was is going to think that he had an intellectual disability.
No, not at all. It makes me wonder where they got that from. I guess just because they had trouble reading.
Yeah. And for me, it's a lot of number reversals. And I also have very poor short-term memory. My long-term memory is ridiculous. It's incredible. In fact, my college roommate used to call me Ellen the Encyclopedia. But if you tell me something and ask me about it 5 minutes later, I can't remember. And that is perceived as lack of intelligence or not, and or not paying attention or
Right.
being lazy or not caring. And that's just not the case. I just am not built for short-term memory. I lose my keys and my coffee all the time.
That's what it's about, though, is finding out what you're good at, what your
Yes.
weaknesses are, and working with all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we've done in the past and what happened with me was everybody focused on the weakness. Nobody focused on the skills. And it's so funny because, like I talked about, just patterns and seeing connections that other people are missing. I'm thriving in my coaching role because I can have, if I had a session yesterday with a client and she just kind of spilled all this stuff out verbally. And I was like, okay, so we have 1, 2, and 3 going on. And she was like, how did you get those 3 points out of 15 minutes of just verbal spill? But that's what I'm good at.
Right.
It's the ability to see those patterns and those gifs. To me, it's blatantly obvious, and I don't see how other people don't see it. So it's really, it's very, it's the other side of the coin. But yeah, being focused on what you're good at, if you're not a good speller, it's not such a big deal these days.
No, not at all.
Right. But for me, it was a death sentence,
Yeah.
and so really focus on those things and learn to work with the stuff that you're just not good at. And anything you can do, and to go back to your other question, anything a parent can do to build your child's self-confidence and self-esteem, things like outward bound or outdoor challenges, where they're appropriate, disclaimer here, are going to help.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. That's great advice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ellen. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
talking with you today, and I definitely learned a few things.
Well, thank you. I'm so grateful to be on your show, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Of course. Well, I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Advancing with Amy, Mental Health Warrior and Neurospicy Mama. We've had an enlightening conversation with Ellen Busch, who shared her inspiring journey of overcoming dyslexia and trauma to achieve incredible milestones, including earning a master's degree and becoming a certified life coach. Her story truly highlights the importance of support, determination, and the unique strengths that come from being neurodiverse. Ellen's insights into dyslexia, such as the strength in visual thinking and the importance of focusing on one's abilities rather than shortcomings, were truly eye-opening. Additionally, her transition from surviving trauma to thriving through structured support and personal development speaks volumes about the power of resilience and professional help. If you're inspired by Ellen's journey and want to know more, or if you're looking for guidance in your own life through her coaching services, please visit her website at ellenbusch.com. That's Bush with a C, or connect with her on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram under the handle of ebush1500. Ellen offers affordable and impactful services that can help you unlock your potential. Lastly, if you found the episode valuable, please share it with your friends, family, or anyone who might benefit from Ellen's story and expertise. Your support helps us bring more empowering stories to light. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for more episodes of Advancing with Amy, Mental Health Warrior, and Neurospicy Mama. Until next time, stay strong and keep advancing, warriors.